Warning: the following video contains images and spoken word that may be too intense for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
David Carter first noticed something was wrong with his left hand when it refused to let go of his toothbrush. He had just finished brushing his teeth and was standing at the sink, trying to set it back into the holder, but his fingers remained clamped around the handle. He willed them to relax, but they remained locked in place as though possessed by an outside force. He chuckled nervously, pried his fingers open with his right hand, and shook out his wrist. It had to be some kind of nerve issue, maybe a cramp. He massaged the tendons and chalked it up to stress. But then, the incidents became more frequent. At work, his left hand tried to rip pages from his report while he was presenting. One night, he awoke to find it clutching his throat. The worst part? It wasn't numb or tingling. He could feel every inch of it, yet it refused to obey. Medical professionals had a name for this: alien hand syndrome, a rare neurological disorder in which a limb, usually a hand, operates independently from the person's conscious control. The doctors offered him a few treatment suggestions: behavioral therapy, occupational exercises, but none of them helped. One evening, David sat at the kitchen table, eating a bowl of soup. He was exhausted, his nerves frayed from the constant battle with his own body. As he brought a spoonful of broth to his lips, his left hand shot out, knocking the spoon away. The hot liquid splattered across his chest, searing his skin. "Damn it!" he roared, grabbing his wrist, trying to wrestle his arm into submission. But the hand resisted, twitching and clawing, nails raking his forearm. He grabbed a dish towel and bound his left hand to the armrest of the chair, panting, sweat beading his forehead. It wasn't enough. That night, he tied his left hand to the bedpost before sleeping. He needed rest. But at 3 a.m., he woke to a suffocating pressure on his throat, his own fingers wrapped tightly around his windpipe. He thrashed, gagging, seeing stars as he clawed at his own flesh. With one final burst of strength, he wrenched his left hand away and threw himself off the bed. He landed hard on the floor, coughing, gasping for breath. Tears streamed down his face. This wasn't just some neurological disorder. This was something worse, something evil. He knew then. His hand wanted him dead. David barricaded himself inside his apartment, covering the mirrors, shutting out the world. He couldn't trust his own body. Every action required careful consideration. He had to anticipate when his left hand would strike, keep it restrained as often as possible. But the hand was learning. It waited for moments when he was distracted, when his guard was down. It was plotting. One afternoon, while attempting to make a sandwich, his left hand grabbed the kitchen knife. David barely reacted in time, slamming his wrist against the counter to make it drop the blade. The metal clattered to the floor. His breath came in ragged gasps as he pressed his back to the fridge, staring at his trembling left hand, which now curled and uncurled its fingers like a predator testing its claws. It was trying harder, growing bolder, and then the realization dawned. It wouldn't stop until he was dead. Desperation turned into a dark determination. If his hand wanted him dead, then he had to destroy it first. David did his research, scouring online forums and medical archives. There were cases, dozens of them, where people had suffered from alien hand syndrome, but none of them described what he was experiencing. None of them mentioned a hand with a will so malicious, so eager to slaughter its own host. He bought restraints. He tried electrical shocks. He attempted to starve the arm of movement by immobilizing it in a sling. Nothing worked. There was only one option left. The night was cold. the moon high. David sat in his bathtub, a belt wrapped tightly around his upper arm to stem the blood flow. A cleaver rested beside him, its steel glinting under the dim bathroom light. His left hand twitched violently, sensing the danger. It clawed at the belt, trying to loosen it, but David clenched his jaw, forcing it away with his right hand. "No," he growled. "You don't get to win." The hand curled into a tight fist, shaking with rage, its tendons writhing like trapped worms beneath the skin. David inhaled sharply, gripping the cleaver. His heart thundered in his chest. He had to do this fast, before his hand could stop him. Raising the cleaver high above his head, he brought it down in one brutal, sickening chop. Pain exploded through his body. A white-hot flash of agony seared his brain. His vision blurred. Blood spattered across the white porcelain of the tub, pooling at his feet. His severed hand flopped onto the floor like a dying fish, its fingers spasming in a final desperate act of defiance. A scream tore from his throat, but he held firm, biting down on his own arm to keep from blacking out. He had prepared for this. He grabbed the cauterizing iron he had heated on the stove earlier and pressed it against the stump. The smell of burning flesh filled the air, and David howled in agony. Then, silence. It was over. David collapsed against the bathtub, his breath shallow. He had won. He had beaten the monster inside him. But then, a sound, a soft, wet slapping against the floor. His eyes, filled with terror, turned toward the severed hand. It twitched, its fingers curled, and then, impossibly, it began to crawl. David's scream echoed through the apartment as the hand scuttled up the wall, dragging itself toward him, its bloody fingers reaching. The lights flickered, and the world went dark.